We are now live on air.
Yeah, we're live now. So, this is the first. What do we call this? Dev one
JellyCast.
Jellycast. I like that actually. Jellycast episode one. We're just gonna talk about how we got started, uh, individually with games, how that led to us meeting, and then how we decided to work on Alchemic Cutie. So, starting off, my name is Sebastian Vacrix. I'm the artist on Alchemic Cutie. I also do a lot of design stuff. And with me now is Thomas Cashman.
Yep, my name is Thomas Cashman. I'm a programmer from Ireland, so my accent might be slightly different to Sebastian's.
Yeah, I'm in the US. I forgot to mention that. Yeah.
um, well, hopefully I can pronounce my words clear enough that people can understand me.
Yeah. Well, you've had a bit of a time with your accent lately, haven't you? Like going from Ireland to Germany and then from Germany to Croatia, and there's probably been a bit of a change.
Yeah, I say my accent probably has changed. I don't know. I'd be interested in a recording of myself a few years ago and see if I sound
do,
different.
do people, when you go back home, do people have trouble understanding you?
No, not really. It's more that they notice I talk a lot slower.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I have to like really talk slow and pronounce my words. Whereas
Okay.
like the second I get back to Ireland, it's just like, oh, how are you going? And you talk real,
Mm,
like
yeah.
stereotypical kind of Irish
All
fast
right.
talking.
Yeah, and you also do design. We're both doing design. Um, but I guess just between the two of us, I'm doing the art stuff, you're doing the programming. So, but there's a lot of mixing since there's only the two of us, isn't there?
Yeah, I think like, well, especially in the design, because we kind of we're both kind of spent a lot of time trying to figure out the kind of game loop, and we're not. I wouldn't really consider myself a game designer as such, as much as I'd like to be, but I still don't. I still don't consider myself uh, kind of qualified in that area. So trying to figure out, well, hopefully, kind of pulling on lessons from previous experience.
And which we'll get
Um,
into pretty quickly here.
yeah, yeah.
So just for in case anybody who doesn't know, we are making the game Alchemic Cutie, and it is a uh, basically a cross between, say, Animal Crossing and Harvest Moon, where you raise jelly creatures on your farm and kind of explore the island that you're on and talk to all the villagers and stuff and do quests and just kind of chill and look around, see what's going on.
Yeah, and there's sort of like the little kind of jelly competitions, and
Oh, and of course the
little
alchemy.
and the alchemy as
The
well.
alchemy, yeah.
Blending items together and transmutation and so
Yeah.
on.
So we want to, yeah, we're still working on that, but hopefully we'll be able to do some very interesting things with that as far as the items and raising your jellies is concerned. So, when did you get started in games, Tom? Tell the audience how many ever people it may be this for this very first inaugural Jellycast.
Yeah, so I guess I probably started. Well, when I was young, I had video games from quite a young age. Like I had a Sega Mega Drive was my first console,
For
and
anybody who doesn't know, that's the Genesis in other
oh, the Genesis in
territories.
America.
Yeah,
Yeah, sorry.
yeah.
Um, so Sega Mega Drive 2, and I had Sonic the Hedgehog, and
Mm-hmm.
all those games. But I wasn't really interested in making games at that stage. It was just something fun to play.
Mm-hmm.
And what would happen was that one day, then my father brought home a PlayStation, and he gave me like a demo disc and said, "Oh, pick a game on play the demo disc, and pick a game, we'll go get it." And first game I played was Resident Evil, which obviously wasn't very suitable for a 5-year old.
Sure.
Um, that gave me nightmares for weeks. But then after that, then like I played Crash Bandicoot, and it was basically Sonic but in 3D, and it completely blew my mind. And I
Mm-hmm.
really wanted to know how this was even possible to make, or like how this came into existence. And and then since then, like anytime I saw a magazine, a local store, I'd absolutely hound my mother to buy me the magazine if it had Crash Bandicoot on it, and I'd read all these articles. So like Jason Rubin and Andy Cavan, the two creators of Naughty Dog, kind of became my idols.
Mm.
And when it was in that then that I learned that programming is how games were made.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to learn how to do programming, and so yeah. So when I was 10 years old, then I got my first PC with my grandmother, and my uncle kind of chipped in together to buy for me, and yeah, and I just immediately went on the internet and tried to learn what this programming stuff was, and since then I made like kind of making little kind of games using like Visual Basic or Games Factory or Games Maker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then I've just kind of been making games since.
Okay, cool. And probably one of the bigger things you worked on is an MMO, correct?
Oh yeah, yeah. So Pokenet was um, probably my biggest project, where we had like 50,000 players. It was a Pokemon MMO, and Nintendo obviously shut it down. But it
I,
was
I didn't realize you had like so many players. I thought you guys had just been working on it. I didn't know there was
no,
people
no, yeah,
actually taking part already.
we had like, because it was open source, we got a lot of people contributing to it. Like it
Mm,
started off with me and like two or three other guys, and then eventually, the source code was open, so we started getting more programmers. Then we got like artists, and then we got composers, and then we even got people donating like server resources to us. So we had like
mm,
3 or 4 servers, and by the end of it, there was like 30 of us working on it,
wow.
and it was just this crazy. It just grew so quickly, and the source code is still on GitHub. That's a public domain.
Hmm.
But obviously, Nintendo shut it down, and we stopped development, and we all
Yeah.
went our
How old were you
separate
when you
ways.
were working on that?
I started when I was 17,
Hmm.
and then it was shut down when I was like 20. So it only lasted like 3 years.
Only.
Yeah.
That's pretty. That's not a very short amount of time. To.
Yeah, yeah. But I learned a lot from that. Like I learned how
Mm.
to not program an MMO. So,
Okay.
so yeah. So next time I go to make an MMO, I'll hopefully get it right this time.
Mm. Cool. Um, and then
And how about yourself?
oh well, um, I guess for design wise kind of stuff, I was interested in games young, like you. Played both the Super Nintendo and the Genesis. Um, and I would make maps of games like the Super Mario World maps on like grid paper or just
Actually, I used to do the same. I used
yeah.
to sketch worlds on paper. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And also, I would just make several pages of different kinds of Kirby's
Yeah.
and just write the move lists for the Kirby's underneath them. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff. Um, Later in high school, um, I also figured out like, oh, if I want to make a game, I have to learn how to do some programming. So I learned a basic amount in order to do things in Flash. So learning some action script. Um, Put out some games on Newgrounds, which generally were completely unnoticed for good reason. But there was one game, the Zombie Survival Quiz, that did really well. Very popular. Um, and also like as a result of that, that's the first time I got like any money from a game.
Yeah.
So that was pretty neat. Um, then I went to school for game design. Um, did some stuff there. Ended up making Disorder with some friends from college, which was the first game I ever had like published on Steam, which was a very big learning experience. Working with a publisher for the first time and going through that whole process of putting out a game. Um, then I just kept doing contract work. As far as art is concerned, I was doing contract work for a year or two. I'm not sure on the timeline exactly, but I was doing contract work, and that's actually how we met, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I had contracted you for a game that was in development.
Mm-hmm.
So I had sort of a small startup that I tried with a few friends a few years ago. to make games, and yeah, I contracted you to do the art on one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then the company obviously ran out of money, and after our first game was pretty unsuccessful on Steam. So so yeah, so that game was cancelled. But then it was only after I released. I think we both had released our. I think Disorder. You said Disorder was around the same time as. So Bar to the Future was the game uh, that we had released, and it was the reviews of it were, I don't know, like people said like, okay, story's good, music's good, graphics are, only okay, but the uh, gameplay wasn't great.
Mm.
And I think that was a kind of failure of myself, because all my life I spent making like 2D adventure game and RPGs,
Mm.
and for my first commercial game I decided to make a platformer, which is, don't, just ignore, like basically starting from zero,
Mm.
because there are whole design philosophies and kind of game feel that I wasn't aware of until after we had released the game,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's why that kind of failed. So
Yeah,
yeah, so
Disorder didn't really live up to expectations either. Well, depends on whose expectations they were, I would say. But anyways, I think um, I think the thing that was helping us at least a little bit is the people who are doing most of the design work on Disorder did play a lot of platformers. So it's good that I was mostly um, focused on the artwork
yeah,
because that's not the type of game I'm, really uh, thinking how to say this. Uh, a professional on playing or designing. So I definitely can see what you're talking about there.
yeah. So I can't remember though how. I think you approached me then after a while.
Yeah, so it'd been, I don't know, was it a year since I actually worked for you?
I think it was like, no, I think it was short. I think it was like 6 or 7 months. I
Six,
don't
seven
think
months.
it
Well,
was a short.
anyways, some time has passed since we worked, and I emailed you. So I was like, well, you know what? Tom seems like a good guy. It was good working with him. There weren't any problems or, kind of personality conflicts, I would say. So I just emailed him and was like, hey, you want to work on a game? He's like, yeah, okay. So so we met up and went through a list of ideas that we both had and settled on Alchemic Cutie.
Yeah. Though kind of funny, we're like, yeah, let's keep the scope small and something that we,
Yeah,
make quickly, and keep it simple. And then it's like, that was in, I think it was end of
I
2015.
think so.
So,
Yep. Yeah, yeah. Well, we looked at the list and we're like, well, we gotta try to pick the one that has this small, like, has to be a manageable size and scope. And so we were like, well, no, this one's gonna be too big. We can't do a strategy game. That's way too much. We can't do uh, this other game with ghosts because it's it's gonna be multiplayer and that's gonna be too that might get out of control. So we'll just pick this little adventure game. Yeah, but I gotta say though, we're actually pretty far along.
yeah, it's interesting, the whole kind of. Well, I was happy to kind of work on this type of project, because the as I said before, like I had previously spent most of my teenage years kind of building adventure and RPG kind of games.
Mm.
So this type of game kind of matched that style of stuff that I was used to, um, but and I kind of knew how to approach the kind of technical side of things.
Yeah.
But at the same time, though, I think as a sort of uh, programmer, though, working with you, that you have kind of pushed me a lot on the graphical side. because before we started this game, I didn't know anything about shaders or like OpenGL blending or anything like that. And then like, you know, we'd be like, okay, how are we going to do the nighttime? And then Sebastian would be, I would be like saying, okay, yeah, we'll just like overlay this transparent color, simple. And then Sebastian was like, no, I want to use this like cool blending technique. Like, here's a mock-up of how cool it looks in Photoshop. And I was like, oh, damn, that looks really good. Okay, fine, I'll figure out how to do it.
Well, you got to give yourself credit. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people who'd be like, nah, forget that. We're just putting overlay. But you've been really great with figuring that stuff out and just being willing to look at it in the first place.
Yeah, it's well, I mean, ultimately though, it improves the quality of the game. Like visually, the game looks really good, I think, compared to any game that I've previously worked on. Like this looks pretty fucking amazing.
Yeah, and I could tell you that this is one of the like most functionally complete games that I've been able to work on as well. There's some games that I've worked on that just never came out or uh, were like half finished. And I just had to move on. Like, all right, well, I did everything you asked me to. I hope I hope I see it on the list somewhere in the future. Somewhere on a store. But you know, when you do all this contract work, you see so many games. We're just like,
That
boy,
never get released.
yeah, is it ever coming out? Or if it comes out, is anybody gonna notice? So yeah, I mean, not to slag off any of the people that I worked for. Just not every game is as shines as bright. I'll
Yeah,
say.
well, I mean, like there's ultimately like I think everybody's in the same boat. I mean, like where to call like if I was to think of myself like even 2 years ago, when I contracted you, or 3 years, or whenever it was 3 years ago when I contracted you, like compared to I think my skill set then to now, I think it would have been that game probably also would have just been disappeared on the Steam new releases page.
Mm. Well, not to say, well, that's I don't want anybody to think we're getting a big head here, but
No.
the game's not out till it's out, so
Yeah,
I don't want to
yeah.
make it sound like, oh yeah, we're so special. It's like
Oh
we
god, no.
we're still working on putting out the demo, so
Yeah,
time will
it took three
tell.
years to make a demo. So
Yeah, time will tell if we're gonna end up in the same place. But
yeah.
honestly, I'm pretty optimistic, and yeah, we
Well,
just
I'm
gonna
kind
have
of
to keep
hoping so
working.
because we're kind of taking our time. We're not rushing.
Mm.
We're not rushing. We're kind of taking our time because um, I know that the saying is that the late game is eventually good, whereas a rush game never is.
Yeah, that's true.
So, but at the same time, though, I don't want to uh, working on one game, but I think we'll get there.
Yeah,
Um,
it's just one of those things. You're like, we're really close to getting this demo out, but it's just always all those. There's just like a big cluster of tons of small things you have to finish
oh yeah,
before
yeah,
something is finished, and it's just like a little bit overwhelming because you get all these big things done. It's like, oh, now we can have all these multiple areas in the demo. Oh, now we have like a whole new tile set to work with. Oh, now we have all the items are in the game and they have like XML. We just need to fill them out and stuff. But then there's like all these little bits that if you don't get them all taken care of, then you're just gonna end up with something that's really janky
yeah,
and it doesn't really have a good feel to it. So yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, like even worst case scenario, if we finished when we finish the game, however long that takes, um, you know, I'm happy to have learned everything that I've learned in the
Hmm.
game, because I mean, ultimately, that makes every other game that I'll ever work on better.
Yeah, well, I
Also,
mean, a lot of these things you've been putting into Mini 2DX, right?
yeah, yeah. So Mini 2DX is like sort of open source framework that I built to kind of replace Slick 2D, which I used a long time ago
Hmm.
and really liked using, but it was abandoned, the project. So Mini 2DX is kind of a continuation of that. And I've been putting a lot of even from Bar to the Future, I put a lot of stuff. back into Mini 2DX, and Mini 2DX is quite feature rich at the moment. So ultimately, I can reuse a lot of work on future games as well.
Yeah, and just to mention, since we haven't said anything about it yet, but a lot of the stuff that you set up for the game is extendable. Like people can add in their own things. Like once we actually have something to put out there, people can start putting in items or sprites and stuff like that.
Well, yeah. So like, I mean, from the start, even 3 4 years ago, modding was a thing. Like, kind of in Minecraft, mods kind of became a thing, and then like Steam Workshop became a thing, and so mods have become fairly core to a lot of game experiences. And so from day one, I kind of said, okay, I want to make, since I had done some basic scripting capabilities in Bar to the Future for like cutscenes, I said, okay, well, I want to try extend that and make Alchemic Cutie moddable from day one. So the way the game itself runs as a mod on its own engine. So the quests, so like the quests and the all the items, the NPCs, all the resources, and
which are items, by the way.
Yeah, well, resources kind of like to spawn the items.
Yeah.
And then even like all the wild jellies and and how the jellies are generated. Like this is all moddable. So when you load up the game, you're actually loading up the main quest line as a mod, and then.
So what you're saying is we have day one DLC. Is that what you're telling
Day
me?
one, yeah. You get the engine, and then you have to buy the content.
Yeah, so that's really cool, man. I hope that people will be interested enough to actually give that a go because, excuse me, I've been looking a lot, at all the XML and all the stuff, and it's like very accessible.
Well, yeah, we try to make it as extensible as possible. So like, I don't want to be a case of, oh, like even if, so I want it to be that like yourself, or if we eventually take more people onto the team, that I want to try avoid the situation where they're coming to me as like, oh, I want to be able to do this in the game. Can you add in that feature? I want it to be more that I want to be surprised by what people do with the capabilities.
Yeah.
Because you never know. Like, okay, we have our ideas of what we want in the game of quests and so on, but ultimately, I think the enjoyable part for us will be seeing what people build with these tools.
Yeah, especially, I mean, I think there's still a lot to be determined as far as the story is concerned, but I really would like to have a nice world for people to, create their own stories within, or not. I mean, if they want to make a freaking bonus zone that's looks like a dolly painting or whatever, then so be it. I really don't care what they want to mod in. It's their mod, right? Whatever you want.
Exactly, like, and even with the game world itself, like people can their own areas, or even mod over, like overwrite them areas that we've built. So
I definitely want this to end up as a very open kind of game. I mean, just the basic, the core content of the game, like what me and you are gonna put out as the game. I definitely want it to be something, in a lot of ways relaxing, where people can kind of take things as they go and really explore and just see what the world has to offer.
Yeah.
And
well, I think that was kind of part of some of the early design talk that we had, where because I remember we were discussing the kind of the day-night cycle, and we were comparing to like Harvest Moon and Stardew Valley. You're forced to go to bed every night. And I was saying how when I first played Stardew Valley, really annoying. I wanted to really go explore this town and this world, but I was restricted to I had to sprint back to bed every night at 1 a.m. because otherwise you'd pass out and lose all your items or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember that. So as part of the design, we said, okay, we'll make it that the player can stay out as long as they want, but maybe eventually NPCs will start saying, "We'll stop talking to you and just say you look really exhausted. You should go to bed."
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
mean
I
that's
think
one of those things, one of those influences that are from Animal Crossing, where not in the we don't use a real time clock like Animal Crossing does, but um, we do when I let people just kind of roam around, even if it's like 3 in the morning,
yeah.
like you could in Animal Crossing, because I don't know, it's pretty fun. Um, I think what are we at now? It's like 2 hours is a single day.
It's like 5 seconds in the game is 1 second in real life, so I can't remember the scale. I think it's around. Um, Let me check. I can check that right now.
Well, anyways, yeah, that was one of the things that we thought about is um, trying to find a balance in the day, which, of course, we're still working on the demo, so it may change in the future. But um, I think we're trying to find a balance between being able to explore and at a leisurely pace and um, having something that's so extended where it gets to be a pain in the butt to manage what you want to do throughout the whole day because all your events are going to be tied to what time it is and stuff like that. So
Yeah, so there is a lot of we want people to be able to play the game how they want to play it.
yeah, I mean, there's also one of the more interesting things, well, at least from a technical perspective, is the password system for the jellies, which I think that kind of ties into our laissez-faire attitude with how people play the game because you can just put in a password.
Yeah.
If you really okay, so let me explain. We have a password system in the game where, well, we haven't implemented it yet, I don't think, as far as
Well, we have the
um
codes generating, but we haven't got the NPC to
okay.
talk to.
Yeah, so what happens is you would be able to trade your jelly with other people by bringing it to an NPC. Um, NPC will take your jelly, so it's basically removed from your game, and then they give you a password. And you can just give that password to one of your friends, and they'll just get your jelly from that same NPC in their game. So there's kind of a roundabout way of trading jellies because um, doing the technical part of sending passwords and stuff, I think, isn't the highest priority at the moment. Um, but yeah, I suppose if you're clever enough, you could figure out the password and then just make jellies of your own, which honestly I think is pretty interesting.
Oh, there's totally going to be some wiki page somewhere with like passcodes to jelly stats.
Yeah, I mean, they had those things with like, it's kind of like a modern Game Shark code in a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I'm totally fine with that. I love Game Shark when I was
Oh, we
playing.
have to call the NPC Mr. Shark.
Oh, hey, there you go. See, we're brainstorming and designing on the fly
Yeah.
in our JellyCast. All right. Well, I don't know. I think that pretty much covers it. I think we ended up on a bit of a ramble towards the end, but um, I think everybody got at least a decent idea of where we're coming from and what the game is about. And I guess we'll just have to look forward to the next JellyCast.
Yep, so I'm looking forward. We'll try to release these on a semi-regular basis, I'm guessing.
The way you came into the mic there really sells that. All right.
Well, I don't know because our schedules, even to record this one,
Yeah,
we
this was
canceled and
3 weeks,
rescheduled.
3 weeks of
3 weeks.
attempts. Yeah.
So it could be like a monthly cast for all we know.
Well, let's hope not, but we'll see what happens. All right. Well, thank you, Tom, for joining me to have this inaugural JellyCast. It was a lot easier than I expected it to be. as far as having a conversation, and because I don't think both of us are too much of presenters, really.
No, no, not really.
Yeah, but and also thank you to any of the listeners. We hope you'll check us out. We are at Alchemic Cutie is the game account, correct?
Yeah, on Twitter.
On Twitter. Mine is at Vacrix, which you'll probably have to look in the description for because it's a bit hard to
Okay.
spell. And then what's yours, Tom?
And mine's at Tom_Cashman.
Okay, and that's all our Twitters. And we'll just put any other relevant links in the
Yeah.
description for this thing here. The JellyCast.
AlchemicCutie.com.
AlchemicCutie.com. Thank you. And yeah, thanks again for listening. And thank you, Tom.
Yeah, thank you.